What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Off the Top Rope, Off the Mic Sports Network. I didn't get a chance to get to this. I said I would get to it, and then just a lot of things have happened. Busy times, with football and just a lot of things going on here on the channel. So AEW was in Pittsburgh on Wednesday night for Dynamite. They had the women main event that show. They had Mina Shirakawa challenge Chris Statlander for the women's championship. Some people were expecting something big to happen at the end of the show. Now, what happened was, a good moment for Chris Statlander. Some people are foolishly saying it's her Becky Lynch moment, but she didn't get her face busted open and probably isn't going to start a revolution. And frankly, I think Chris Statlander, this is just a token title run until Mercedes is ready to challenge for the women's championship. So she turns down the Death Riders. Cool. A lot of people were expecting Britt Baker to show up. I don't know why. And I don't know why anybody expected this to happen. I mean, Tony Khan really fanned the flames, really, of this on a media call. I think it was for All In. It might have been for Forbidden Door. I can't remember what it was. But Britt Baker hasn't been on television in almost a year. Remember the moment where she basically said, "Who cares?" She said it right to Serena Deeb. By the way, where the fuck is Serena Deeb? But surely fans were like, "Oh, surely we're in Pittsburgh. She's going to show up, right?" Nope, she didn't. Nothing happened. Britt Baker nowhere to be found. And the original AEW women's superstar that basically tells me she's gone. And furthermore, I think she's being held hostage, which is bullshit as far as I'm concerned. Tony Khan made an analogy basically saying that she's on our bench and, we can't use everybody. Well, considering that you just introduced women's tag team titles and that you're having a women's blood and guts match and you have no storyline progression for any of these women, and this was the original person that you signed, no matter how you feel about Britt Baker and how she's kind of conducted herself backstage, I think she's earned the right to, be put in a better spot than she has been. And if you're not going to use her, then what is the point of booking a show in Pittsburgh and, a divided fan base, some who like Britt, some who don't like Britt? What's the point of booking a show in Pittsburgh with some people expecting her and some people not expecting her? What's the point of, keeping her on your roster? What's the point? What are you holding her for? The only reason you're holding her there, listen, if she goes to WWE, who cares? You'll get killed for it because you've already put yourself in an impossible position. But why are you holding her hostage? You give WWE this hard narrative against them saying, "Oh, they're the Harvey Weinstein of wrestling." And yeah, WWE has some shady business practices that they've been doing. But Vince McMahon hoarded talent because he didn't want them to go to the competitor. If you mean to tell me that you don't have spot on your television for Britt Baker at this point in 2025 when your women's division has been booked into oblivion to the point where you had to introduce women's tag team titles that are not going to do a damn thing for this division. And it's just, I don't get what the end goal is for this women's division if that's your strategy. It's like you have a bunch of talented women, but you haven't been able to book them at all. One of the main people in this division that had any credibility was Britt Baker because she was the first one there. She was one of the first women to sign there. She had a lot of equity. And it's like ever since Mercedes Moné showed up there, it's like Britt's a second-class citizen. And I understand Mercedes has a lot more equity and she came in with a lot more cachet and a lot more of, sizzle because of what she did as Sasha Banks in WWE. And I totally understand that. But it feels like, between that last summer, really just ended everything and, really quelled a lot of Tony Khan's perception of Britt Baker because Mercedes is clearly the golden child. He will move heaven and earth for Mercedes because that's the GOAT in his eyes, which, I get. But between, the backstage stuff with Alicia Atout and MJF And then, the really bad match that happened at All in London last year, which partly was because Britt got hurt in the match. It's just, I don't like how this was handled. And it just leads me to this bigger point. It's like, listen, if you have a bloated roster as it is, and you're not using a lot of your women on the roster effectively anyway. So if you mean to tell me that you can't put Britt Baker on television for a year, and then you go back to her hometown, give people a false perception that she's going to show up just by going there, like you didn't have to say anything. Some people were going to foolishly think that Britt was going to come back, and then you don't book her there. Like, what's the point of even keeping her on your roster? Like, what's the point? What are you trying to gain? You trying to get one up on the other place? Why don't you focus on booking better shows and making more compelling television? Like, one of the main stars of the early ages and of the early stages of AEW was Britt. That's it. She's one of the main reasons you got Adam Cole in your company, because they were together. They're not together anymore. Like, I get it. You have a new A1 woman in Mercedes. Toni Storm has made herself into an A1 woman. But outside of that, there's nobody else there. Nobody. If you were going to bring her back, Wednesday was it. But now we're at a point where you're at a point of no return, and you're holding her hostage at this point. So if you want to pay her to sit at home, that's fine. But optically, that does not look great. And the audacity of you, Tony Khan, to go to her hometown, where some people who root for you in the company still wanted Britt Baker back. So you let them down. There were some people who, it was a very uneven split, and some people didn't want her back. Some people did want her back. It's amazing how the perception of the DMD really changed in the last year or so. A lot of people were genuinely happy to see her back after a lot of the health scares that she had, and she looks like she's doing really well. She's been able to vacation for like the last year. But it's like, what is the end goal here? If you're going to just carry on doing shows with the women's division in as bad a shape as you are, you just introduced tag team titles. You have a new women's champion. Mercedes is going to break Jade's record. What is the end goal if you're going to go through Pittsburgh with her still on your roster and not bring her on the show? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. If you don't want to use her, then don't use her, and just let her go. Because there's nothing you're gaining by keeping her there. Just dead weight on your roster. If you don't want to use her, don't use her. It's not that hard, man. So, hate to break it to you, fans of the DMD, she ain't coming back. She'll probably get held hostage for a while. Maybe it'll be a Ricky Starks situation, and, maybe she gets let go. But it's hard for me to believe at this point that she's ever going to come back to AEW. And, to me, until they figure something out, like, it's bullshit. It really is. And it's insulting that Tony keeps dancing around this topic like it's going to change anything. Just let her go. Let her go. Anyway, I'll see you guys soon.